So in terms of the panel discussion, okay, so I think for today, it's just yourself and me.
Right.
So in terms of the panel discussion, I think the topic that we're discussing today will be on scaling innovation in Southeast Asia startup ecosystem. More towards providing insights in terms of how can companies scale their products and solutions into Southeast Asia and also across Southeast Asia, right?
Right.
So maybe I'll start off with an introduction from my end first, and then Amy,
Sure.
you can do an introduction, and then we'll start the conversation. So
Sure.
hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Tun Arif Mubin. I'm the country director for Blackstone Consulting here in Malaysia. So my background focuses more towards public-private partnerships as well as relations into government and private sector in terms of deploying products and solutions into the market, business development, in terms of product commercialization, as well as business scaling. In a nutshell, my experience also includes being in government agencies, ministries, startups, as well as corporate sector. I think that pretty much in a nutshell covers it just nicely. So Amy, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy. I'm Managing Director of Global Port Partners. Basically, I'm a consultant in maritime sector, but being in Singapore for the last 17 years and currently in Jakarta, I'm very familiar with the Southeast Asian market. And what I have done for last over like 18 years, basically being Korean, I know the Korean technology very well. And being Korean who can speak English, I know what's the barrier for my country people. So what I was doing is basically finding the good tech companies and good products from Korea and help them to coming into the Southeast Asian market. And everybody talking about the South Asian market, which has a huge potential for the next global, the major market, right? Yeah, so I'm very happy to contribute to this talk as I can share my experience through the last over 10 years experience. Yeah.
All right, thanks,
so,
Amy.
Thank you.
Since starting off, it's just the two of us, so we'll keep this conversation very candid, and I believe
Yeah,
that makes
sure.
as well. So we might need to behave for a bit, Amy.
No worries.
So I think as what you rightly pointed out, Southeast Asia is the up and coming region when it comes to businesses scaling into, right? Previously, for the past couple of decades, we've seen America and then consecutively Europe as well, being the market that a lot of businesses are scaling into. But I think during pandemic and post-pandemic, Southeast Asia has been a hot spot for a lot of companies, be it small, medium, or large scale, to venture into, because there's a lot of opportunities and untapped potential going to the market, right? But
Yes,
also,
agree.
as per any businesses coming into a new market, obviously they will also like to identify what are the challenges and opportunities of scaling startups into Southeast Asia, given that we are a very diverse population region with a variety of different culture, a rapidly growing economy as well. So perhaps under the capacity of your role as Managing Director for Global Board Partners, you could also share in terms of insights of what have you seen in terms of challenges or even opportunities for companies coming into Southeast Asia.
All right, sure. So for my experience, I'm basically working with not only Koreans, a lot of other nationalities, and as long as the tech, the solutions are there, then I usually engage. But the most challenging part for coming into Southeast Asian market is a lot of archipelago, a lot of islands. Yeah. So there is like a lot of different ethnic groups and also different races, multicultural, multi-language, and business culture also a lot different. And being Korean, staying here over like decades, almost 2 decades, I see the business world. Business is a human to human. Because of pandemic and technology, we can meet the people through the online, but there is a certainly limitation, right? So there is a culture that in Southeast Asia, being Asians, we like to meet the people and feel whether there's chemistry exists, whether your solutions are great and great potential, but there is no engagement between the people who conduct the business, and there will be a certain restriction and limitation, because human to human basically provide you the trust level, the natural trust level. Yeah. So that's the one of things that I pick up. Yeah. And also language wise and the culture wise, like food or the direct, we have this kind of culture that mix up in Singapore. Malaysia as well, we use the Malay, Singlish, and English, everything mixed up in the business, the language as well. Yeah. So these things, unless you are in this market, we still formally conduct the business, but you don't have this kind of a sense. It's very difficult to close the deal. Yeah. That was as being Korean here, I realized that. So a lot of Koreans make a mistake when they coming to the Southeast Asian market. So in Korean side, Southeast Asian market is always like a developing countries, not like developed countries, right? So they didn't look at this market very interesting until very recent years. So when I first came down to Singapore, it was like early 2000. So that time nobody interested, and some of people doesn't even know where is Singapore, what is Southeast Asia, yeah. But now it's a huge potential market, and everybody recognize it. And the Korean side, I receive a lot of requests for like a market research and what kind of technology is being available here, and whether there is a market demand and the government, what kind of regulation they are supporting. Yeah, so you can see then Samsung, LG, those big companies, like from 10 years ago, they are coming into this market aggressively. Yeah. But Japan, compared to Japan, is a bit slow, because Japan was already came into this market 20 years ago, 10 years earlier than Korea. Yeah. But it's a good thing that these countries recognize the potential of the Southeast Asian market. And what I see being here is the Southeast Asian market, the government sides, although we are still the developing countries, they are very aggressive, and then they are very open-minded. So new solutions, new technologies, and the global trend, they are very keen on to ride this flow. Yeah. So the cultural things and governments, and also the active market that invite a lot of global companies, I think it's all as a part of an ecosystem. The structures are there. So we need to tap into this market. I think this is like not the early stage, it's already kind of a mature stage for Southeast Asian market to get in. Yeah.
Right, and thanks, Amy. I think I also like to echo what you shared, because it's really on the dot, right? When you say that a lot of the countries in Southeast Asia are really open in terms of accepting foreign technologies,
Right.
especially now post-pandemic, right? Because they realized during pandemic how important and critical technology and digital innovations are. And I think also to compare across all the other countries in Southeast Asia, Singapore being the most developed ones, but countries like, for example, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, these are countries that are still developing, and there's a lot of room for growth in terms of the ecosystem, right?
Yes,
and the government, regulators as well are very open in terms of welcoming new technologies into the countries, primarily also due to technology transfer and knowledge transfer, right? So that pretty much is in terms of the opportunities. But I also like to skew a bit on the challenges, as you mentioned, cultural, language. But truth be told, there's also challenges whereby we also need to accept the reality that when it comes to doing business in Southeast Asia, it's about who you know, right?
Yes, right. Networking. Yes.
It's about the networking. And as you have pointed out, it also requires a lot of physical interactions, face-to-face interactions, not just via email, not just virtual call. It's all about building relationships.
Yes,
right?
correct. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd also like to touch a bit in terms of the role of government, investors, and also incubators in terms of supporting the growth of startups in Southeast Asia. So I'd like to take up this one first and share a bit in terms of the experience and so observations that I have in terms of what the government has done, including investors as well as incubators, right? I'll start off from a Malaysia perspective first, being the reason that I am based in Malaysia currently. So the government in Malaysia, when it comes to global companies setting up in Malaysia, they're very open. There's a lot of incentives being from visa passes to tax exemptions to ease of hiring foreign tech talents. So the government is very receptive and very accommodative when it comes to companies setting up in Malaysia. When it comes to investors, truth be told, Malaysian investors have not been the most active investors. The reason being they're a bit more on the risk adverse side. They typically look for companies that already have a lead investor coming in, and then they will come in to complete the cycle, the funding cycle. When it comes to incubators or accelerators, Malaysia doesn't have a lot compared to even Singapore or Indonesia or even other countries in the region. But the ones that we have are very, very focused on still early stage. So reason being is that in terms of landscape-wise, Malaysia's tech ecosystem is not yet mature. A lot of our companies are still in pre-seed or seed stage. We can count with one hand in terms of how many are in Series A and above, right? So yeah, so there's still a lot of room for improvement and growth. That's on the Malaysia side. On the regional side, I have seen that a lot of government and regulatory bodies are also very receptive in terms of cross collaboration to ease setting up of companies in Southeast Asia and allowing movements between countries, right? So I believe there's also the ASEAN pass, visa pass for companies to freely move easier between countries to countries to operate within Southeast Asia, as well as the connectivity of investors and ecosystems. I think a lot of movements have been made into that direction as well. So that's from my end. Amy, thoughts from you?
Yeah, for me, my experience is basically mostly in Singapore because I was based in Singapore. Then the business between Singapore and Malaysia comes together. So the last 2 years, I experienced Malaysia a lot, and currently I'm in Indonesia. So the movement and the government's the direction, what I observe is yes, the government side, they recognize the importance of incubating the startups, the potentials of a startup, which can actually solve a lot of national economic problems. I think they really recognize from the central government perspective. So Singapore being always advanced technology hub, they always have this very supportive system from the government side. So there is a lot of available grants and even the Singapore being small the government is very open to foreign companies who has like the patents and core technology. So seduce them to come into the Singapore, set up the kind of the regional hub there, and supporting them to do the R&D activities, and also help them to get into the Southeast Asian market through the Singapore. Yeah, so that part, the Singapore government is extremely flexible and open to it and very supportive. I think that's why there are like a few reasons that global companies who move their headquarters to Singapore, and everybody knows that the tax the tax benefits in Singapore is great, right? Yeah. So usually when I advise the foreign companies coming into this market is setting up the entity in Singapore first and using that as a kind of an entry point and coming into Malaysia, Indonesia, and any other Southeast Asian market. That actually help the foreign companies kind of adjust into this market. Yeah, and Malaysia, as you already mentioned, last 2 years, my experience with Malaysia also, the government side is actually very active. So national level accelerator programs and the startup, this startup ecosystem is introduced like a number of years ago, but if there is no leaders and pushing through, it's very difficult to sustain the environment. But I see huge the activities for last 2 years, especially, and the state governments and those agencies, they are really put on effort and change a lot of regulation, and especially as you mentioned about the VCs. I believe a lot of VCs and some the investment cash flows came into Singapore from Hong Kong. Then from there, it actually the VCs are targeting to our Southeast Asian market because due to the restriction in China side, a lot of manufacturing facilities from global companies actually looking into this market, Southeast Asian market, because the quality of a manufacturing, whether it's a textile industry or technology industry, the level of we catching up, Southeast Asia market is catching up the China level is getting better. Yeah. So what I hear and what I see is the VC is actually very, very interesting in Southeast Asian market for this purpose, like smart manufacturing and even the fashion. We have quite a number of those the big startup who are successful here, right? So for that perspective, I think we are receiving a lot of attention and and kind of proving that this market can do it. Yeah. And Indonesian market also, I see recently, yeah, the government side, they are very interested in this technology coming into like a smart city project or a smart states project. And also in Indonesia also has as much as an island like Malaysia, right? So they're trying to solve the logistics issues and supply issues for those not developed the island side. So I see not only the Tokopedia, there are a lot of e-commerce and e-logistics companies are coming up here. Yeah. So my personal opinion, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia is currently very, very hot place. And we call it like a golden triangle, right? Yeah. So from here, it will spread out all over the Southeast Asia. And as you mentioned, we can get like those ASEAN kind of not really passport, is a business visa, right?
Yeah.
Which these ASEAN countries understood each other that we are not individual market. We are the one big market. 10 countries together is one big market. So all the governments, they kind of agree that we are working together to follow this move.
Yeah, exactly. So just to compare, right? So because, for example, the America region, obviously you have your US, your Canada, your Latin America, and we all know that US is the big brother of it, right? And then the Europe, you have your European Union, whereby everyone speaks the same language, uses the same currency. But in Southeast Asia, it's a fair level playing field with all the countries. And of course, Thailand's relations with Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, I think that's pretty well known in terms of doing business there due to economic ties, historical ties as well. But doing business in Southeast Asia is essentially very straightforward. The ease of doing business, I think, in terms of Malaysia and Singapore, we rank quite high in the World Business Index, as well as in terms of adoption as well, right? The acceptance level is much more easier and less complex compared to the West side of the world.
Yes, right. Yes, right. More friendly and it's more open up to the foreign solutions and peoples. We know that what we are lacking of, so we're trying to get, as you mentioned, technology transferring and getting those skilled resources and learn from there. That mindset is already built up for last few decades. So we are ready to tap on this market. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Amy, like you mentioned, right, in Indonesia, the trend of smart cities, logistics, e-commerce are picking up, and I believe that sectors are also what's trending or what's picking up in terms of all the other countries across the region. Reason being, for example, Indonesia, of course, there's a development of Nusantara, and we all know that they are investing heavily for smart nation infrastructure, right? Smart
Yes,
city
right.
infrastructure.
Yes, right.
So, yeah, so even in Malaysia, be it federal or state level, they are all pushing for smart city infrastructures as well. Digital twin
Right.
is there, IoT, AI, automation, IR 4.0. So all of this are really picking up heavily, especially in terms of federal or state level projects as well. So,
Correct.
but there's also certain trends like fintech or health tech that are still trending in Southeast Asia, still picking up, but very, very highly regulated. So, for example, just to compare, because Singapore and Malaysia has been compared quite a lot, just to compare in terms of regulatory hurdles in terms of Singapore and Malaysia, we all understand that Singapore is much more flexible and much more fast-paced compared to Malaysia. But based from your view as well as experience across the region, in terms of sectors that are heavily regulated, fintech, health tech, what's your view in terms of the opportunities for these sectors in Southeast Asia?
All right. So as you mentioned, yes, the fintech sector and the health tech sector, it required a very heavy regulation because you don't want to take any risk. You can't just open up and let the new technology come in and disrupt the market. And if there is any incident or any disaster happen, there is no solution for that because if it is too new, then it's just like you have an insurance industry. Then these autonomous cars, when the accident happen, who are you gonna ask for like responsibilities, and the insurance company, how are they gonna charge for it, or how to settle do the settlement, right?
Yep.
If that kind of new technology just disrupt the market. Yeah, so the fintech and the health tech area is still heavily regulated all of the country, I think. Yeah, but Singapore being the Asian financial hub, they are totally open up the financial part from like 2 decades ago, and then they even use the sandbox, the concept to open up for this market to test. Yeah, so when the Singapore started about this startup industry and a certain sector, the poker sector was actually fintech. Yeah. And now move on to fintech, to logitech, to health tech and insurtech. There is a certain trend of a movement for like a government direction. There is like the national level of digital transformation for every industry. The government come up with the experts about the digital transformation map for every sector of the industry. Yeah. So that efforts actually help Singapore their work like a smart nation. Yeah. So I think the Singapore the smart nation work is actually quite doing well, and it's already reached a certain achievement point. Yeah. But when I come into this Malaysian and Indonesian market, the fintech part is also open up. You can see that it's like a cash risk, everywhere cash risk, and even those pasar marang side nowadays they just use the like a barcode or those cash system, and all the schools, yeah, being mother of three, the realization when I go to the school is like there's no more cash. We have to get like those smartwatch that can help them to make the payment, or the e-card. Yeah. So it came into our life so deeply. Yeah. So the fintech market, I think it's still room to grow. Yeah. And we're talking about Southeast Asian market. In Indonesia, there are many people don't even have a bank account. So the financial inclusion, we are talking about that. Then the fintech is a huge potential. So instead of not having the bank account or not able to apply for the credit card, that means also not many people have insurance. But this micro, the insurance or fintech actually help those like the low income family and low income individuals to tap onto this kind of a service. And it's
Exactly.
not, yeah, it's just started like about 10 years. So it's not totally covers every part of the Southeast Asian market. So I believe that there is still room to grow, and it will be more common for the people to use. And not many people has an account and credit card, but everybody using the mobile, which actually very, very good tool for this fintech, insurtech, and even the health tech market. Yeah, and the health tech, we are talking about health tech. Now there are a lot of this platform for those who not able to visit the hospital because simply their island doesn't have a good hospital. Then it's a remote, the doctors through the online or mobile, like just the WhatsApp video call, then you talk to the doctor and get the symptom, the consultations. All these things actually the lower improve their quality of life. Yeah. So yeah, still the fintech, according to your question, fintech and the health tech, the heavily regulated area, but also very open to the new technology coming into their market to improve the existing problems.
Yep. Okay. So I totally agree with you in terms of the applications of fintech and health tech, especially with developing markets, right? Especially those that don't have access to either financial institutions or access to proper healthcare. So the healthcare and fintech element provides a lot of reachability to these segments. So this brings me to my next question as well. So perhaps I can ask you first and then I'll add on from there. As per any company that's scaling into a new market, localization is very, very important, especially with countries in Southeast Asia, whereby we are not just a single language speaking region to compare with the EU, for example. We have Malay, we have English, we have Singlish, we have Thai, we have Vietnamese, so on and so forth. So when it comes to localization, based from your experience in terms of helping either clients or observing other companies scaling into Southeast Asia, what method or what strategies could companies from outside of Southeast Asia, say, could implement or execute in terms of localizing their solutions to specific markets?
All right. It's a very, very personal the opinion based on my experience, because I help a lot of Korean companies, right? So the Korea is still within Asia, but it's a lot different from Southeast Asia. It's more on Northeast Asia, right? So China, Korea, Japan is a kind of one cluster, and Southeast Asia is another cluster. So the first barrier is the language. And second barrier is the culture. So these two are the major issue that I encounter when I advise the Korean company to prepare to get into this market. So material-wise, about the product and solution, everything has to use the local language if you want to get into the local market. But just simply translating the words into that local language is not helping. You have to know how the people accept the products. So the branding, marketing will comes together with the language. Yeah. And secondly, the culture-wise, okay, the Korea also one of a very conservative the culture country. Yeah. So they believe that what they are doing is right. But when you bring that culture into other market, it wouldn't work. So the mindset has to be changed. And all these differences you want to get over, it will take a lot of time if you want to do it by yourself. now we don't have a much times when you get into the new market, right? So the fastest and the most effective way is finding the right partner in the local market, because you study about that market from the scratch, from the beginning, and finding the human resources, and you're finding uh, the materials and suppliers from the local market. You will take 1,000 years because you are not in the market and experience or meet the people. But if you can find the right partner from the local market, they already there in that market, they know the people there, they know the process there, they know the product there. So we talk about 3P all the time, right? These things, you don't need to learn from the beginning. So my solution usually is going to find the right partner to get into the market, and the right partner also getting the good opportunity to bring in the new technology or solution, the new income streams for them, right? And also this one can help the local partner to get to know about like technology and technology transferring activities. Yeah. So that's one of main strategies I usually adopt when I bring the Korean company into this market.
Got it. And I totally agree with you 100% on that. It's really important to find a local partner who understands the local ecosystem, local landscape, local culture better, right? As to compare with you jumping in blindly, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then just to
Exactly.
realize, oh, I don't understand the market.
Yeah.
But one thing I would also like to add on for companies trying to scale into Southeast Asia is actually do a bit of homework first, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like trying to remembering back how you launch your own product in your home country. Obviously, you did your homework in terms of your demographics, in terms of the purchasing power, the landscape, right? The disparity and whatnot. So it's the same element when it comes to going into Southeast Asia markets, right? Understanding who's the key players. Is there a product market fit in the specific country? Because there's also a reason why, for example, certain products from the US can't be brought over into Southeast Asia because there's no product market fit. So understanding that is really critical as well as you scale into Southeast Asia.
Yes, that will be the like a kind of a prelim research that before you decide which market to go in, because there is no demand and no target customers, then yeah, you shouldn't start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Amy, I also just want to bounce this question with you. In terms of the role of investors and also incubators as well as accelerators across Southeast Asia, right? I mean, we're all aware that investors, their role are primarily to invest, but a lot of them also play a very passive investor role, not an active, expecting high ROIs from their companies, right? Expecting high traction despite not properly helping out their portfolio companies. So across Southeast Asia, I mean, there's a few bigger players such as 500 Global, Gobi Partners, but a lot of other players in the market as well. I think most of them are coming out from Singapore as well. And even sovereign wealth funds like Temasek are also involved in investments nowadays, right? From your lens, what do you think can investors do in order to play a more active role in terms of supporting the growth and scale of companies, especially into and across Southeast Asia?
All right. For myself, not a huge investor, but a small scale investor. But it really depends on what kind of investor you are, whether your KPI and your target of investment is just how fast you get your ROI and how fast you can exit. All those are the purpose. Then maybe it's a different view for myself and my partners around. We are more on like how we gonna support these companies to scale up, because at the end of the day, you want to get your ROI, you want to get the exit. You need to help them to grow and get into the market fast, right? effectively and productively. Yeah. So for me, I'm more active investor instead of a passive. I'm not just a sit down, research it and find the, listing names and what kind of solution, verify. All those things are necessary to get to know about the company that you want to choose to invest. Yeah. But once you choose, you just put the money, that doesn't mean that your job is done. You need to help them to, go to right direction, because too many industry, too many problems, and these tech startups that are involved in are just providing one part of solution. But these part and parts getting together, if as an investor and those who has a vision, I think we can help them to draw the bigger picture, because the tech solutions are piece by piece, but when you put it together, it can actually solve the bigger problem. And those collaboration and partnership actually bring up the better solutions for global companies' problems and the more bigger economic problems. Yeah. So for me, more involved in helping them to scale up, and not only the getting into the market and getting the POC, getting the deals. Aside that, I helping them to find what will be the best strategy for you to get into the market. In this market, you bring in, okay, you are the developer, your solution is kind of platform or software development. But to do the software development, you need to have a physical, like IoT devices or sensors, some kind of physical supplies. But you bring things from your market to new market is costly. And getting your people to come into this market to do the work, costly. So why not you find your local sources which can help you to lower down your cost, especially Southeast Asian market. If I'm talking about like those are developed country, Europe, America, even the Korea, Japan, your local market is expensive. Then you are moving into this market, keep adding on the cost. So when you reach this market, you have a no price competitiveness. So fit into the market, you need to minimize your costs and you need to find your price point for that market. Yeah. So for that perspective, yeah, I'm pretty much very involved from the beginning stage of the market entry. Yeah. And to answer your question, I'm more active investor than the passive.
So that's a very good example that you've given, right, in terms of your role as an active investor. Because just to share based from my experience and observations as well, VCs or investors in Malaysia specifically, I can't speak much about the rest of the region, but for Malaysia specifically, it's always a chicken and egg situation, right? Before they even decide to invest, they'll tell the company, I need you to get more traction, but they never tell how much. And then even when the companies gain more traction, they'll be like, you go find a lead investor and they will invest in you. So it's always a chicken and egg situation, and this ends up leaving the companies hanging to dry. They can't raise funds. Because they can't raise funds, they can't get more traction. So end up they die, right? So that's not the best way to do it. So my thoughts is in terms of investors, how they can play a more active role in the development of startups, especially into and across Southeast Asia. It's more towards being more open in terms of the investments and the deals that they make. It might not have to be the full ticket size. It can be more on a probationary basis, on an optional basis, rather than saying, hey, go get more traction. We won't tell you how much, but eventually we'll put money once you find a lead investor, because that ends up very frustrating, right? And then that's also why
exactly.
Yeah, that's also why up until today in Malaysia, we always say, oh, Grab is from Malaysia.
Right.
The boat has sailed, and even right now, there's so much effort in terms of making sure that Malaysian companies stay in Malaysia as they grow but the opportunities and the support is just not enough per se,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Not ready yet, actually. Yeah.
exactly. So as well as moving on the accelerator side. So accelerators in Malaysia, typically a lot of, I think most of the sectors are already involved, right? Be it government, corporate, even regulators are running accelerator programs now, be it sandbox or actual accelerator programs. So this has been very, very beneficial for companies, be it local or foreign companies, to have a more established feel in terms of what is happening in the ecosystem, having a more clearer narrative in terms of the pulse of what's actually happening on the ground, right? Because they get to meet with other companies, they get to meet with experts based on specific verticals or specific sectors. But in Malaysia, I would say there's not many accelerator program providers. I think there's about 4 or 5. And
Right.
because of that, also the structure or the framework of the program is recycled, right? It's the same thing. It's basically
Right.
the same face with different hats.
Mm. Mm.
So because of that, also I feel that the quality of startups end up the same over the years, right? There's no improvements. There's no growth in terms of the startups quality. It becomes very stagnant, very monotonous. And to a certain point, it disrupts innovation. So similarly, when a global company tries to come into Malaysia, for example, typically they don't join accelerator programs unless there are huge incentives at the end of it. So for Malaysia, at least when it comes to accelerators, it's a good entryway, especially to go into corporates, get their buy-ins, get POCs. But on top of that, there's really not enough value for you to spend 3 months commitment to focus on an accelerator program. But Amy, I think this is also where we'd like to get your feedback in terms from your experience either in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Malaysia, or even in Korea, of how accelerators have contributed to the growth of startups.
All right. Thanks for your deep view about the Malaysian market, and I share with you share your view as well. As I was a mentor for like the Beyond 4 program for cohort 1 and 2. Yes, the Malaysia market is not so active for the accelerator program on the national level, and because is the government is not experts in that area yet. There are some few agencies and departments working on, but these need some experience, and the ecosystem has to be stably placed. But I think it's still middle of the way to form the concrete structure. Yeah. So as I involved in a few accelerator program, the number of startups and their level of presentableness is not there yet. Yes, there are a few very good ideas, but need a lot of effort to polish. If you think that they need to go to overseas market, yeah, it's more or less focused on the local market. Yeah, not ready for the global market. Yeah, and same things happen in Korea too, because Korea now they reached a certain point, but I look back like when I just started for this mentoring and involved in the startup market about like 8 years ago. Yeah, in Korea also the the startup is just the term. Before startup, we are talking about like entrepreneurship, and then venture, then basically startup successful, stay long enough, then it become SMEs, right? Yeah. So it's just the different terms at different times. So Korea, when they started about this startup, there is a lot of the government, central government and state government, they come up with a K startup or startup center, all different names. But basically they are doing same things and just a different hats. Yeah. But when you do repeat repeating this kind of accelerator program long enough, then I think there will be a certain point that you figure out what will be the sustainable structure. And government shouldn't be too deep involved for this. They can make like the stage for the startups and the other ecosystem coming and working together. But there is limitations because the government view is different from like a private sector. So I see a lot of good startups, successful startups actually coming through the private sector's accelerator program. So in Korea nowadays, we have a lot of the private sector running the incubator program and accelerator program. And there are a lot of financial institute, the group level, they like either CVC or different form of the investment body. They deeply involved in this kind of program. So, for example, like there is this Sinang Group is one of our biggest the financial group in Korea. They have their arm that only invest in the startup industry. So Finascare Bridge is one of the example that we work together. Yeah. So for them, they are private sector and they have money to invest. So as you are the startup, you know that at the end of this journey, this the accelerator gonna invest us. Then you will work harder and they will listen to the mentors and the direction. You need to pivot. Your original idea is is not ready for the commercialize or the market demand wise, it doesn't work. Then you need to pivot to be survive, right?
Yep.
So this kind of the hanging fruit you want to catch, then there is a huge motivation for the companies to improve. But as you mentioned, Malaysia, there is a certain level of the government side to support, right? So I think it's still too early for private sector to come in. But as I know, the plug and play and some other like Western and developed countries, the accelerator players, they are coming into Malaysian market and Indonesia as well. This will actually affect the market to improve altogether. The level of standard will be get better, I believe. Yeah. So it will take time. Basically, you need the ecosystem is like it's just one night you can build up.
Yeah.
They should have leadership from the government. But the government is only can open up the stage. Then every part have to place in to work together, and the private sector who has expertise need to play the role. Yeah. That's why you, me, Patty, our private sectors exist who has like more than a few decades of experience in this market. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Amy, thank you very much for that. So I think we're down to the last 10 minutes or so. We have a question from Roslan. Is asking, is there a way to measure technology adoption in ASEAN? For innovation to scale, I feel we need to know what our current level of technology is. So if you ask me, is there a way to measure technology adoption specifically? It varies, right? It can be based on mobile penetration, internet penetration. So
yes.
from that alone, for Malaysia, at least our internet penetration stands at more than 98% right now. We have coverage basically throughout the entire country. Mobile penetration, quite high. Actually, it's more than 100%. I think it stands at 120% now, meaning more than one Malaysian has more than one phone right now.
Yeah.
In terms of adoption of technology, I would say obviously in the urban areas, states like KL, Selangor, Penang, Johor, the adoption is high, but still there's a lot of room to grow in terms of penetration readiness for adoption. But I think across Southeast Asia as well, other countries, the adoption level is relatively high. Pandemic has definitely accelerated the growth of adoption. If we're talking about adoption of mobile payments, either card transactions, e-wallets, definitely higher. different central banks across the region has also activated the intra-link e-wallet payment usage. I think Malaysia has Wait Now, Singapore has Pay Now, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Thailand has Prompt Pay. So those are all interconnected as well. But yeah, that's from my view. Amy?
Yeah, I agree with you, but that is more on like B2C perspective, like individuals, right? If the discussion including like a technology adoption in like the business and those markets, that one is not only like a mobile penetration or internet penetration. It's more on the government and the private commercial sectors, what kind of solutions that they are using. But that part, I have no idea how the market is measured. So because there is not like a fixed index or tool to use, right? But what I can tell you is, as I currently working for like digital twin solutions, and the attention we receive from the Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, these are 3 countries, and also recently some of the Thailand, Brunei, all these countries, the government levels, they show a lot of attention because, as I mentioned before, this smart cities project and the state government levels, they want to be the first smart city implemented city. That's kind of their goal for before the next election. Yeah. So that part, I don't know how to measure it, but that when I talk to like individual state government, you can see that they have an intention to adopt this system, but existing systems, there are still a lot of manuality.
Yep.
Like when you talk about the smart city, we are talking about like whether your system is a paperless, whether your control tower to see like a public area, like a metro station or airport, whether you use those smart CCTVs and the IoT sensors to receive the data about like which area is like crowded and peak time, non-peak time. This one pretty much there is a lot of gaps. Yeah. So that part, the gauging, how to gauge the technology adoption level, I have no idea. But yeah, that part is improving in ASEAN market, and people from the government side, they are open up to accept it and they want to try. But it's not common solution, and also it's a huge project usually. So yeah, it's the early stage to adopt.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Also, just to add on, when it comes to B2B solutions, it covers quite a wide spectrum of B2B. There can be retail adoption, there can be government adoption,
right?
There can be corporate adoption, SMEs adoption. So various factors to be considered, and it's not a one size fits all kind of approach in terms of assessing for the technology adoption in specific countries and specific sectors as well. Okay. Any more questions before we wrap up?
Oh, this can be the solution, the answer for the questions.
Going once, twice. Okay. No further questions. All right. So just to sum it up, basically, when it comes to scaling innovation in Southeast Asia, there's quite a few factors to consider. One is in terms of the culture. This constitutes the language, like Amy said, the food as well. You need to consider.
That is important.
Language, food, in terms of local understanding, local readiness for solutions. That's one. And then number 2 is in terms of understanding different landscapes altogether, from government, ranging from federal, state, even to local councils as well. There's different ways of operating the bureaucracy. In terms of scaling across Southeast Asia, which markets are best to go into? Just an example, Singapore would be best into for fundraise, for just understanding the whole ecosystem of Southeast Asia, and then subsequently into Malaysia or Indonesia for further POCs or pilots or market entry, and then followed by other markets in Southeast Asia. When it comes to scaling into the region itself, obviously, as per discussed earlier, understanding the market research, understanding what needs to be done as per going into any new market is essential. But on top of that, you also need to find the right partner to work with. Find the right anchor partner, local partner to help in terms of easing your entry into the region. Did I miss out anything else, Amy?
No, perfect.
Okay, all right. And I think with that, we shall wrap up our panel discussion for the day. So thank you very much, Amy, for your time and for your input and insights on the session.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's a great session. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Amy. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.